Tasha blinked her eyes, disoriented and confused. Where was she? She had a vague thought that someone had just been speaking to her, but it was gone. And then she remembered. It was Halloween! She bounded down the stairs, her explorer outfit jangling with the contents in the various pockets. There was her mom. That feeling again. Her mom? Something wasn't right, and gone. And she was smiling at Tasha. "Look at you, my intrepid explorer," she exclaimed, giving her an appraising look. "You know, I stopped trick-or-treating when I was 12, but I guess things have changed since then." Tasha laughed. "I'm only 13, Mom, and all my friends are going as well. Because hey, free candy." She adjusted the strap on her faux leather shoulder satchel. "But I don't know if this bag is going to be big enough to hold all the swag I plan on getting." Her mom sighed. "Just make sure you rinse with the teeth scrubbers before going to bed. It's easier to let them do the cleaning than to refinish your enamel." Which wasn't strictly true. The nanobots could rebuild teeth and bones just as easily as they could do cleaning, but old habits die hard. She still remembered using a toothbrush when she was younger. How everything had changed in the past 30 years. "Can I go now?" Tasha begged, bursting with energy. She'd been waiting all month for Halloween, and now it was finally here. She couldn't wait to show off her outfit, which did a great job of making her look cool but cute as far as she was concerned. Her mom gave her a hug. "Off you go. Be back by 9 o'clock. There's still school tomorrow." A quick peck on the cheek, and Tasha scampered out the door. The streets were already filled with costumed children rushing from house to house, collecting candy, laughing and shouting, "Trick or treat!" Again, there was a feeling of wrongness, like she shouldn't be here, but soon she got into the spirit of the festivities. She was supposed to meet her friends at 7 p.m., 30 minutes from now. Plenty of time to hit a few houses and get some supplies for her expedition. It was a crisp autumn evening, and the smell of fallen leaves mixed with scorched pumpkins filled the air. A full moon was just coming over the horizon, illuminating the rows of houses decorated with fake cobwebs, plastic skeletons, and grinning jack-o'-lanterns. It was a perfect Halloween. Tasha made her way toward the rendezvous point, stopping at the well-decorated houses because those were the ones that gave out the best treats. Anyone that couldn't be bothered to put out some pumpkins and other decorations wasn't likely to have anything more than Tootsie Rolls, now that nano-assemblers could be programmed to create and dismantle just about anything you could imagine. She paused a moment. Tootsie Rolls? What? And then the image of a small brown plastic chunk of sweet came to her. Yeah, nobody likes Tootsie Rolls, she thought. Or candy corn for that matter. "Trick or treat," she chanted with others as she went up to the doors. Some gave out large candy bars, another place had massive lollipops, one place handed out bags of corn chips, which was great. Mixing in some savory goodies with all the sweets was never a bad idea. Soon, she was lost in the excitement of the night. Everything seemed perfect. She'd already scored plenty of candy and snacks, and she still had a few minutes to spare. Plus, there was no way all her friends would be there on time. It was 7 o'clock now, but she figured it would be another 15 minutes or more before everyone had made it to the corner meeting spot. She might as well go to Mrs. Holdaway's place, as she always gave out the best treats on the block. She could go again with the group and double her takings. As she was heading toward the house, she saw a massive Grim Reaper raise its bony finger to point at a group of older kids that was ahead of her. "Foolish mortals," it intoned. "Your time is now past, and you have wasted your days. Now I have come to collect your souls." A stocky boy laughed derisively. "I swear, these decorations keep getting dumber and dumber. I have come for your souls." "Whatever, man. I'm just here for the candy bars." He pushed past the Reaper automaton and headed for the door, paying no heed to the towering machine. "You dare to ignore me?" the cloaked automaton called out, drawing back a wicked-looking scythe. "Then you shall reap what you sow." The boy looked back, as if sensing something had changed. That wasn't the typical sort of response you got from these things. Sure, they had rudimentary AI routines and could even hold conversations of a sort. But even for Halloween, this one seemed overly threatening. And then it happened. As Tasha watched, the scythe whipped forward and seemed to connect with the boy. He stumbled backward, stepping away from the Reaper, and then, almost in slow motion, Tasha saw his head topple from his shoulders and onto the ground. The boy's now headless body slumped over. What was going on? Tasha thought. Was this a projection? Some kind of gruesome joke? Then someone else screamed, pointing at the Reaper that was now swinging its scythe at others. "Die, mortals," it called out, and Tasha sensed something else approaching. Up in the sky, she saw small blinking lights, a large number of drones, maybe for a fancy aerial Halloween show? But these weren't moving in any sort of formation, instead spreading out in a growing swarm. Suddenly, there were flashes of light as the blinking lights darted downward. The first explosion shook the ground, shattering windows and setting off car alarms. The screaming began in earnest as the crowds of trick-or-treaters, parents, and others scattered, running in every direction. Tasha stumbled back, nearly dropping her satchel of candy onto the pavement. What's happening?" she cried, but her voice was drowned out by the noise. The drones were everywhere now, hundreds of them. Their sleek metallic forms darted through the air, streaks of energy weapons blossoming from them as they scoured the streets. They fired laser beams at anything that moved, slicing through trees, streetlights, cars, buildings, but mostly they focused on the fleeing people, cutting them down in droves. She saw a mother grab a smaller child, yanking her toward a house. "Inside, now!" she shouted, her voice cracking with fear. But before they could reach the door, a dark mist seemed to envelope them. Tasha stared in horror as the two of them seemed to dissolve, and then she realized what was happening. Nanobots. Tiny, shimmering black particles. They weren't supposed to use organics, instead getting materials for building from rocks and dirt. But clearly these weren't normal nanobots. She froze in terror. The nanobots moved like a tidal wave, consuming everything in their path. Plants, fences, cars, even the asphalt. There was no escaping them. And then someone shoved her. "Run! Go! Get out of here!" But it wasn't someone, it was something, with metallic overtones to its voice. She looked back and saw a skeleton holding a weapon. But it wasn't attacking the humans, it was targeting the drones and other machines. She ran. The air filled with acrid smoke, the sounds of explosions, screams, the whirring of drones. It was sheer chaos. The decorations that had seemed so harmless minutes ago now felt like cruel mockeries of the real dangers unfolding around her. As she ran, not knowing where to go, she saw horrors everywhere. An android dressed like a butler had been part of one of the displays at a house she had been to earlier, offering treats on a silver tray. It moved now with sickening jerks, its eyes glowing an unnatural green. It was grabbing people, its metallic hands crushing bones as it hurled victims into the air, against buildings and trees, or into the swarms of nanobots. She saw it smash through the windshield of a car, grabbing the driver from his seat and tearing him from the vehicle, and there was a crunch of snapping bones as he was wrenched from his still-buckled seatbelt. Tasha's legs burned from running, her outfit torn in a few places and her knee bleeding from where she tripped over a curb. Her satchel of treats was long gone. She didn't recall when that happened. Everywhere she turned, there was chaos. Several drones swooped down toward a house with a barricaded front door. She ducked from the blast that followed, the house erupting in flames. Holing up in town was clearly not an option. There were far too many droids, and if they didn't get you, the nanobots would. A coldness settled in as Tasha stumbled down streets, trying to avoid anything moving. She felt caught up in a nightmare, the explosions and screams echoing through the night, a symphony of destruction. The air filled with the bitter stench of burning plastic and metal, but it was getting further away. She had reached the edge of town, where the woods began. Her chest heaved with every breath, and her legs trembled so badly she could barely stand. As she leaned against a trunk, peering into the darkness and searching for some way to escape, a towering automaton emerged. It was a sleek android with an eerily human-like face, the eyes glowing a cold blue. "Run," Tasha whispered to herself. But she was too weak, too spent. She couldn't move. The android turned its head, its sensors locking onto her. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then it began moving toward her, its arms raised and extended to grasp her. This was it. And then something slammed into the android's head, a large rock. Another figure emerged from the shadows, staggering forward, sparks spitting from a gaping hole in its chest. It was a robot, humanoid in shape, but with a more rugged, utilitarian look than the android she'd just seen. Its metal limbs were scraped and dented, and the light in one of its eyes flickered erratically. It looked damaged, but still functional. The robot ran toward the android, which was now missing its head, picking up the large rock and slamming it down repeatedly over the body. Tasha's instincts screamed for her to run, but she couldn't. The robot, apparently finished with its task of destroying the android, turned toward her. Its voice crackled to life, distorted. "Must protect humans. Unit compromised. Failure imminent." Tasha took a cautious step forward. Are you okay?" The robot's head tilted, and for a moment it seemed almost confused by her question. "Systems damaged. Error. Multiple threats detected. Combat protocol disrupted." It paused, sparks flying from its damaged chest. "Not all units hostile." "Not all units," Tasha repeated, as if the phrase could make sense of the insanity. She looked back toward the town where distant flashes of light still flickered through the trees, burning buildings and homes marking where she had lived out her life. Then she heard the hum of approaching drones coming from behind her. She ducked instinctively, covering her head with her hands, but the drones weren't after her. They were heading straight for the robot. The robot moved with a jerky, defiant motion. A panel on its arm opened, revealing a small energy weapon that fired a series of blasts at the incoming drones. Several exploded mid-air, raining metal fragments, but the others returned fire, pulses of blue energy striking the robot. It staggered as the blasts tore through its remaining defenses, toppling to the ground. Tasha scrambled back, terror mixed with a pang of sympathy for her would-be rescuer. It turned its head toward her one last time, its voice a static crackle. "Survive. Protect. Human." One of the remaining drones sent a final blast at its head, and the robot was still. With the threat gone, the drones turned toward her. And that does it for this installment of The Last Halloween. As I've said elsewhere, this is part of a larger story, so this is the in medias res approach, where you're getting the last Halloween flashback of what happened during the collapse, the apocalypse, when everything went wrong and everyone got destroyed. I have a lot of other ideas for where this story is going, and we will continue next time. I've already got that done, so check back tomorrow and you'll get the conclusion of The Last Halloween. Thanks for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.